Now that Brock Purdy has his big-time extension, it'll be John Lynch who's fired next by the San Francisco 49ers. I'll explain why on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Lauren Cox. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at the best Christmas games. We got a great Christmas slate from the NFL. We'll start, though, with the Thanksgiving games when we look at the schedule. But the first story of the day is more reaction to that Brock Purdy extension, because I have a feeling that general manager John Lynch may not be around too much longer in the Bay Area. Before we dive into all of it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen, for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Again, even though it's the off season, we do not slow down here on Locked On NFL. 5 days a week, double dose of NFL information all off season long, Monday through Friday, for free on all platforms. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. Again, it's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But, Lauren, Brock Purdy gets his big-time extension, and I think the number one question is, now that he's making that kind of money, how can San Francisco build a team around him? And I think it's very similar to the Jalen Hurts situation in Philadelphia. And our guys over with the San Francisco 49ers and the Locked On 49ers podcast talked about how you kind of got to build things similarly and why it might be difficult.
I would say if you did a poll, right? If you polled most people and said, hey, who's the better quarterback, Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts, who would y'all say is the better quarterback? I think 90% of, especially 49er fan base, would say, oh, Brock Purdy's a better quarterback. So that lets you know, like, yeah, probably Jalen Hurts needs all of that. He needs the number one running back. He needs the two terrific receivers. He needs the tight ends. He needs the stellar defense. He probably does. And when you have that, though, you got to capitalize. And that's the difference, right? When you're a guy that, hey, man, I probably need this to win, you better capitalize in that moment. And the 49ers have had multiple opportunities now to capitalize in that moment. When they did have stellar running back or run game, receivers, tight end, top defense, and they did not capitalize. So that's the difference. But I would say, yeah, like I'm right on board with you. Like, some guys need it, some don't. We've seen Patrick Mahomes not have the best of everything, and he's still been able to win. We've seen other guys barely fall short, probably losing to Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Those guys are talented, and they put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. But somebody like Jalen Hurts, I think, yeah, I think Jalen Hurts needs that. Terrific O-line as well. I think he needs that. And I think that's a lot of people's conversations or arguments about Brock Purdy. Like, yeah, Purdy may need those things a little bit more than some of the other guys who are getting paid solid money. And if you are getting paid a lot, are you going to be able to build the same way that the Eagles have been able to put a terrific team around Hurts? It's possible. Do you trust your GM to be able to do that consistently? That's the question.
See, I want to get into that question, but Lauren, just asking you, do you think Brock Purdy's better than Jalen Hurts?
It depends on, like, as a passer, I think he's a more consistent thrower of the ball, but Jalen Hurts' ability as a runner makes him more dynamic and more like he can create a little bit more on his own than Purdy can from like, I think Hurts is a better playmaker, but if I just want like quarterback to run my system, then I go Brock Purdy.
See, I disagree like so vehemently on this. Like, Jalen Hurts is a whole tier above Brock Purdy in my mind. Like, they're exactly the same, except Hurts is way more physically talented. Like, that's what I see. I just don't see. I guess if I want a quarterback to just run my system, I think Hurts does that just as good as Brock Purdy does too. You know, I think the thing that makes Purdy special is that he can do stuff outside of the structure and make good decisions and all of that. And Hurts does that stuff Just better. You know what I mean? So I know he said 90% of 49ers fans, and Croc's probably right. 90% of 49ers fans probably would. But I think 90% of NFL fans would say Hurts is the better player than Brock Purdy. So I found that interesting. But I guess overall, the big point about John Lynch that I really want to chew on here is, like Croc was saying, you can do it. You can build a great roster around a quarterback who's just good, probably getting a little overpaid, but you can build that great roster around him. But it's going to be difficult. Who's the spotlight going to be on the whole time? The general manager. Kyle Shanahan has taken them to 2 Super Bowls. I think Kyle Shanahan is a better coach than John Lynch is a general manager looking at their records. So I think if San Francisco doesn't make the playoffs this year, John Lynch will be fired.
See, I'm torn about this because on the one hand, like, John Lynch is the GM who found Brock Purdy at the end of the 7th round, and giving him a contract extension like this suggests, like, hey, look at how much of a success this was. Mm-hmm. But being able to have success with Brock Purdy will require you to draft as well as the Philadelphia Eagles have. Like, that's correct. It's kind of the secret here. It's like you can win with a quarterback being that expensive if you're nailing all of your draft picks, all the 1st round picks and the 2nd round picks that the Eagles have hit on the offensive and defensive lines, and Devonta Smith at wide receiver, right? Like, they've been able to get young, cheap talent for Jalen Hurts by drafting so well. And John Lynch set himself so far back by missing on the Trey Lance trade. Not only you get the quarterback wrong, but you're missing 1st and 2nd round picks for years. And I think that's why we've seen the 49ers drop off, because they just haven't been able to keep the cupboard loaded with rookies and young talent developing along the way, because they've messed up so badly getting rid of all those picks.
And that's why, that's exactly why I think John Lynch is on the hot seat, because you're right. He's built great rosters in the past, but at the end of the day, are they going to get rid of Kyle Shanahan over him if they have another bad season this year and they miss the playoffs? Are they going to look themselves in the face and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't give him Brock Purdy all that money 1 year from now? No, what they're going to say is, hey, look at Philadelphia. It's possible. And Lynch has made good enough picks in the past, and he's not doing it now. So I think rather than blame Kyle Shanahan or blame the quarterback that's just not good enough to elevate his cast, they're going to say, John, you're not building up a good enough a roster for Kyle Shanahan and around Brock Purdy. It's your fault. Like, if things go bad in San Francisco, out of the big 3 of every organization, the GM, the coach, and the quarterback, it's clear to me, at least in my opinion, that John Lynch would be the next one to go. I hope it's Kyle Shanahan. Listen, I'm a Titans guy. I'm like, hey, Brian Callahan, he messes up. Kyle Shanahan gets fired. Let's go grab him. Like, that's what I am hoping for as a fan of my football team, is that Kyle Shanahan would be available. So I don't think that the 49ers would let him go if they have one more bad season, but they would need to make some sort of change, and I think John Lynch would be fired.
Don't you think there are maybe 10 teams, at least in the NFL right now, that if their fan base could trade their general manager to the 49ers for John Lynch, they would rather have John Lynch? Do the 49ers risk losing a good thing that maybe has made some mistakes and isn't perfect, but has gotten them to multiple Super Bowl appearances and like deep playoff runs with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy as quarterbacks? Like, there's something to be said there about you can do a lot worse than John Lynch as general manager.
I definitely do agree with that. I think John Lynch isn't a bad general manager, but I guess really my point overall is that when things go bad multiple years in a row for teams, or they don't meet expectations, like the Bengals this year, if they don't make the playoffs, like, somebody's head's got to go. Like, you can't have that much underachievement multiple years in a row. There's going to be some need for change for the sake of change. And I think that change would be John Lynch, even if I don't think that he's a bad general manager. But at the end of the day, you can't get rid of Purdy because of the money you just paid him. And I think that Kyle Shanahan is a top 5 coach in the league, so I'm not getting rid of him. So if there is change for the sake of change, that's why I guess my arrow continues to point at John Lynch. If it had to be, not saying that he's terrible, just saying if they make a change, it's going to be him now.
It feels like 49ers fans have been a little bit spoiled when it's like, you know, they had a 6-10 season this year, but prior to that, they were 12-5, 13-4, 10-7 in the playoffs in the conference.
Yeah, they went to the Super Bowl the year before that.
In a row. And now they have 2 bad years and get this general manager and get this head coach out of here. It's like, well, have you seen what it's been like to be a Tennessee Titans fan for the last few years or a Chicago Bears fan for the last few years? You want to fire your general manager because you had 2 bad seasons? Yeah. Like, come on, please take a number.
Hey, listen, Lauren, I'm not agreeing with the motivations. I'm just saying what I think will happen. You know what I mean? But with that in mind, let's maybe spin away from people getting fired and talk about the holidays, baby, because the NFL is keeping us fed this season. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot, a Game 7, a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. With the conference championships coming up, I'm going to be betting on Jalen Brunson over on the points. I'm going to be betting on the Timberwolves and Ant Edwards to win the series. Give me Wolves, give me Knicks in the finals. But if you're new to FanDuel, now is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Lauren, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about a little more fallout with the San Francisco 49ers and that Brock Purdy extension. I'm sorry, I just cannot help but look at that and think it was a mistake. I just think Brock Purdy is a tier lower than what you need to be to get paid that kind of money. Here's a question for you, Lauren, before we totally turn the page to the schedule. I asked Legacy Louie yesterday about this. Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Tua, and Brock Purdy, which of those four is the best quarterback?
I think if I'm hitching my wagon to one right now, it would be Jordan Love, just because I feel like I've got like the most malleability there, that like I think those other guys are a little bit more who they are, and I think we haven't seen the best of Jordan Love just yet. He's getting close to it, but I think he's as much as that pains me to say, and as much as I see inconsistencies in Jordan Love's game, to me, like that's where the upside is there for me. Whereas like the other guys, they're kind of they feel more firmly entrenched in that tier, and Love's the one like could still jump up a tier.
I'm with you. Me and Louie both went with Trevor Lawrence. I can't quit it. I still believe in the talent, but Jordan Love was unanimously our close second. So I definitely do think there's merit there. And speaking of Jordan Love, professional segue, folks, what can I say? This is what I do. The first matchup that we get on Thanksgiving is an absolute banger between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. And look, I have a feeling, I will continue to say, Lauren, I know that you may not like to hear it, but I think the Bears are going to win the NFC North this year. I think they make a big jump up. I think it's the Lions who take a big step back. I am not certain. I don't think that Dan Campbell can never recover, but I think even with Nick Sirianni, we saw who got a big extension from the Eagles as well. But I think it may take Dan Campbell a little bit time to recover from losing both his coordinators who were head coach level coordinators. And he may never recover. I think that he might be able to, but year one may give him some trouble. So I think with Detroit maybe taking a little bit of a step back, they're going to be right in the same talent range as a team as the Packers. And that's going to make for a great matchup. And the Tundra, Green Bay, it's just going to be an excellent environment on Thanksgiving. So that's the matchup that I'm looking at on Thanksgiving. The first matchup of the day, I think, is going to be awesome.
Yeah, there's some volatility there of how good Detroit is, but even if Detroit takes a step back, like that's still going to be
still good.
A great rivalry game on the holiday. I mean, and to bookend Thanksgiving with two big northern rivalry teams in the cold with Ravens and Bengals at night that night. Like I think,
oh man,
we probably both agree that like Chiefs Cowboys in the middle is like that's like the low hanging fruit, like biggest team names, but like the best matchups are going to be those other two. But just like the Lions have questions, the Bengals do too. But I think as long as Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are healthy for that game, I'm going to be absolutely locked in.
Yeah, I feel like as long as the teams are relatively healthy, every single game, like you're saying, is absolutely awesome. Lions and Packers, we just talked about. Chiefs, Cowboys. I'm more excited for the Cowboys this year than general consensus. It seems like I think they're going to be a competitive, fun team, and I'm so excited that the Cowboys are doing something exciting when they went and get George Pickens. It just, whether wrong or right, I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I'm not invested in the wins, but I'm just excited the Cowboys are excited. We know that Bengals-Ravens is literally magic every time they're on TV. I'm very excited for all matchups, but I can tell you two people who are not excited for the Cowboys-Chiefs matchup, and it's our guys over at Locked On Cowboys.
For me, it's the Thanksgiving Day game against the Chiefs. First of all, I like when the Cowboys play the Giants on Thanksgiving. We got to be the only people, Cowboy fans, love when Dallas gets to play New York on Thanksgiving because we get to enjoy the game, enjoy our turkey, and then enjoy the apple pie and the W all in the same afternoon. It's absolutely fantastic. But I think the NFL got a little tired of that happening over and over and over again. So instead, they put the Kansas City Chiefs, and there's part of me that just thinks, with Patrick Mahomes, who grew up a Cowboy fan, talking about how much he loved watching his Cowboys on Thanksgiving. He's never played at AT&T Stadium before in the NFL, played there in college, that he's going to want to put on a show. And that just makes me really nervous. And maybe with Trayvon Diggs and Overshown will be back at that time. But I always get worried about playing Patrick Mahomes because he can have those monster games and it could be over by halftime.
Making us earn our Thanksgiving meal, Marcus. I love it. And a lot of history there. For those of you who don't know, Kansas City, it used to be the Dallas Texans franchise. So they were originally from Dallas. And then when the Cowboys started, they moved out to the AFC, or the old AFL. So a lot of history between these two teams. And that is fitting. But you're right. I don't want to play Patrick Mahomes in late November. Certainly not in Thanksgiving. So it's going to be, and again, game number 2 of an incredible 6-game slog that you're facing that we just mentioned. So going to be absolutely brutal to watch, even when I'm filled with turkey.
Look, I got to tell you, it's not going to be brutal to watch for me. I'm going to enjoy it pretty much either way, but I will continue to say, I think the Cowboys can be very competitive this year. I think they're going to be a playoff team this year. So I think with the Chiefs, Super Bowl hangover happens to everybody when you lose. They've been so many years in a row that I think it's going to hit them harder than maybe some other teams. I think this is going to be a competitive football game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like the guys are worried about with the Cowboys podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you just look back at the Chiefs last year. I mean, even at 15-2, there weren't a ton of blowouts along the way. There were a few, but that was a team that everyone kept waiting to lose, and they didn't. They kept pulling it out, 2 points here, 3 points there. So you can at least feel like you go in that game thinking you're going to lose, but probably going to be able to put up a good fight because the Chiefs they're still vulnerable. You know what I mean? They're always going to be vulnerable, but they're always going to be ahead of you because of Patrick Mahomes. And as long as we have a healthy Dak Prescott and we can actually see these Cowboys at full strength, I think it can be a good game.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's, as long as the teams are healthy, it's going to be close. I believe in the Cowboys being competitive this year. Now, I do want to spin the block a little bit, go back to that Ravens-Bengals game. If the Bengals do not beat the Ravens once this year, I don't see them making the playoffs. I know that there are a lot of other games out there, but to me, it's just a benchmark for the Bengals, and they're supposed to be a Super Bowl contending team. And if they get swept by Baltimore again, including another one of these primetime matchups, and there are other games going to be in a big window to watch, if they can't get over the hump of Baltimore, I just think it's going to have a mental impact on the rest of their season. And this, everybody says, the old adage, football season doesn't start till Thanksgiving. Well, if they go out there on Thanksgiving night in a big-time game where they need to prove that, hey, we're back, we're back to being Super Bowl contending Bengals, and they don't win this game, if they lose the other one too, I'm just not going to take the Bengals seriously, and I doubt that they're able to keep their momentum afloat to make the playoffs again.
Yeah, it's another one of those that feels like it's guaranteed to at least be close after last year. I mean, even the Bengals were 1-4, 1-3 when they took the Ravens to overtime the first time, and then that second game they lost by 1, and they were below 500. They weren't supposed to be right there with the Ravens, but in these divisional matchups, so much of the records and everything else goes out the window because for whatever reason, guys just turn it on and play at a different level, and people are more locked in, and especially in prime time on a holiday like this, I mean, it's just going to be a great show.
That's what's annoying about the Bengals. Now, listen, these two franchises are incredibly different, but the Bengals play like the Los Angeles Lakers play. Joe Burrow is Luka, Jamar Chase is LeBron, and they play like they're the defending champs. They don't get up for regular season games. It's got to be prime time. It's got to be a big matchup. There's got to be big names on both sides, and it's listen, you've been in the play-in for the last 5 years. You're the Bengals. You haven't made the playoffs 2 years in a row. Why are you guys acting like you're, defending champs when you play games you should win and you play down to your competition? They just have a lax kind of laissez-faire attitude about them when they haven't earned that. So the Bengals better fix that this year, because if they get off to another bad start, which they always do under Burrow and Taylor, it might be hard to climb out of it if they can't win these big-time games. But look, That's Thanksgiving. And what comes right after Thanksgiving, folks, other than a nap?
Heartburn.
Okay, well, me and Lauren just dated ourselves pretty bad. A lot of rings on these tree trunks. But Christmas is what comes right after. And boy, we got another great 3-game slate. All right, Lauren, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL, breaking down some of the holiday schedules we got from the NFL. Fantastic. After talking a little Brock Purdy in San Francisco, and boy, I would not want to be John Lynch right now. But before we cap things off, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On NFL your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and the news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. But again, we get to this Christmas schedule. And we have the Commanders against the Cowboys, the Lions against the Vikings, and then we have the Chiefs against the Broncos. So more Kansas City Chiefs. And I know that a lot of people are upset about the Chiefs having 7 primetime games, and it seems like too much. But my guy Matt Williamson from the Peacock and Williamson podcast made a great point of everybody acts like this is good for Kansas City, when actually this could be a major disadvantage for Kansas City.
Some fans are upset thinking that the Kansas City Chiefs getting too good a treatment and are in prime time too much. And they're in prime time quite a lot. Like the league is, the league wants the Kansas City Chiefs in the spotlight, clearly.
Clearly, which I'm sure they would be no matter what. They go to the Super Bowl basically every year. They've got the best quarterback in recent memory, Andy Reid, Spags, Kelsey, and, Chris Jones. They're very marketable, obviously.
Not as marketable as one pop star.
Taylor Swift's the most popular human being on the planet, most recognizable human being on the planet. I think that's a ton to do with her. I mean, they are first team in NFL history to have 5 primetime games in their first 8 weeks. And the first one's in Brazil against the Chargers. And then they also play Thanksgiving and Christmas. For the second year in a row, they're playing Christmas. Like, you could say that's preferential treatment, but it's really difficult on these teams. If you play Monday night on the road, no matter what area of the country you live in or you come from, you get home at like 6 a.m. And I mean, night games on the road in particular really take a lot out of you, and you basically almost lose a practice day for the week coming up for Sunday night and Monday night games. So that's challenging.
See, that's an interesting way to think about it. I personally hadn't thought about it yet. Matt Williamson, former NFL scout. There's a reason Peacock and Williamson is such a great podcast, dropping a ton of knowledge. Check that out, along with Locked On NFL Scouting. I mean, what more could you need than the Locked On Podcast Network, folks? I mean, my Lanta. But the point is fantastic. Everybody looks at it like, oh, the NFL loves the Chiefs. But really, this is tough for the Chiefs. And coming off a Super Bowl loss, which we know historically sets teams back, I think this Denver-Kansas City game to cap off Christmas night is going to be awesome. It was one of my favorite games of the year when the schedule first came out. But I think we do need to acknowledge that while everybody thinks that the NFL loves the Chiefs, they actually probably made it harder for them with all these primetime matchups.
Yeah, you think about how much football players rely on like routine and rigidity, and like every single week I'm doing the exact same thing because that's what I know gets me ready for this game. So I eat at the same times, I work out at the same times, I sleep at the same times, and during the season every team has a game that's not at 1 o'clock Eastern on Sundays. But yes, there are times when that schedule breaks, but for the most part, guys can treat every single week the same way, and the Chiefs aren't going to have that kind of uniformity for much of. I mean, there will be stretches of the season for sure, but that over the long run can really be disruptive to sleep schedules and muscle memory, and just taking care of the athletes to be in perfect positions. And I'm curious to see, like, does this affect injury? Does this affect snap counts? Does this affect endurance over the course? Do they seem more gassed than other teams? Not because they were in poor shape or poor conditioning, but just because of the demands that they face that other teams don't. Like, I feel like we don't see this translate when it comes to just like people say, how many miles did you have to travel on the road that year? That's not as big of a deal as like this kind of disruption to sleep and practice and timing. And the human body is rhythmic, and your body clock gets thrown off, and it'll be yet another monumental challenge for Patrick Mahomes to make look super easy and mock us all along the way.
See, Lauren, this is an excellent point. And listen, this is a football podcast. As I say all the time, I'm not a doctor. But everything you said about rhythms is true. And we could talk about professional athletes, but it's just true about human beings in general. We are routine animals. We are rhythmic animals. We got to do things in a certain pattern to be at optimal capability. And that's just times 10 and magnified by 100 with professional athletes who literally need their body. Like, whatever you do, their body is that job. So to keep it on rhythm and in a pattern is so important. So you're right. That aspect of it is going to be huge for the Chiefs this year. It's going to be crazy how they manage that. But I'm very excited for that Denver game, and all of that impact that we're talking about, potential impact, could hit at the end of this season. And playing against Denver, I think that could be a very difficult matchup. I really do think that the Chiefs are not going to win their division this year. I just think they take a small step back in games like this that they should have lost to Denver last year, and they didn't because of weird stuff like the blocked field goal at the end. I just think they lose those close games this year because of some of the wear and tear. Now, out of the other two games with the Vikings and the Lions and the Cowboys and the Commanders, which one of those two games do you think is the most exciting?
To me, I look at Cowboys Commanders. I mean, and anytime you get Jaden Daniels on the field, that's kind of the biggest part there. But I also just think like those two teams to me are going to be more interesting and competitive there, where it's like we already talked a little bit about could Lions take a little bit of a step back. And I think with the Vikings, with a rookie quarterback and JJ McCarthy, I think they'll still be good, but they're not going to be the same. What did they win 14 games this past season? Like they're not 14-3 that twice. So like that game will matter and have stakes. But if I want like the most exciting football action, like Lions and Vikings are just going to run the ball 30 times each and maybe try and hide their quarterbacks a little bit. But like Jaden Daniels and Dak Prescott are going to come out throwing. And I think that game has the potential for a lot more fireworks and excitement.
100% agree. No notes. Like you're spot on there. I can just count on if health. Of course, if things aren't healthy, then that changes everything. But I can count on Dak Prescott and Jaden Daniels to put on an entertaining show, whereas I don't know what I'm going to get from J.J. McCarthy. Is he going to be any good? I have my doubts. I'm a big J.J. McCarthy skeptic. The Lions, we talked about losing the coordinators and all that, but even such, like you said, they're a run-first team, and without Ben Johnson, that could make their passing game even, less important to their equation and then make their games less entertaining. So I'm fully on board with you there. I am interested in J.J. McCarthy and seeing what the Lions do this year, but I got to admit, that game, out of all of these 6 games that we talked about today, that game is the, I guess, least exciting from my perspective.
I was a little bit disappointed that both Thanksgiving and Christmas have 3 of the same teams, Cowboys, Lions, on both weekends. Like I love that. Like, hey, every Thanksgiving you're getting Cowboys, you're getting Lions, and like that. The routine of that or the tradition of that is totally fine. But like, I would love to see like different teams get these solo game opportunities here. Like there's an opportunity to see what the Cardinals can do in this season, or the Chargers with year 2 of Jim Harbaugh. I mean, there's a bunch of teams that have good fun narratives that would have been nice to see instead of like, all right, another Chiefs game and another Lions game and another Cowboys game. Like I just got to see them at the end of November. Give me some other teams that I'm not normally getting on my noon schedule in Chicago and Central Time over here. Like let me see some of the rest of the teams instead of the same ones getting pushed on us again.
Yeah, I agree. And look, it's like a dog chasing its tail to a point, because it's like the NFL wants to put teams on that have buzz and that will get people to watch, but also by never putting certain teams in these opportunities, you aren't raising their profile and making them worth watching. It's almost like the NFL needs to maybe lead their audience to these teams and certain players a little bit better. The NFL is doing it better than any professional sports league probably. So, I don't want to hate too much, but at the same time, I guess I agree with you that they could maybe switch up those windows, and especially because we just saw those teams. So it's not like you're not capitalizing on those. But, I do like the slate, but I agree with you. Maybe one more game with like instead of Lions, Vikings, or instead of Commanders, Cowboys, if they could have done a totally different matchup that we haven't seen in those holiday windows, that would have been cool.
Yeah, like Eagles, Bills is that weekend. Throw them in there.
Yeah.
And Eagles got Black Friday, so at least we're getting, and we'll get to see the Super Bowl champs plenty. But like that would be a great matchup. Or same with Packers, Ravens, although both of those teams were also on Thanksgiving. So
yeah, right.
So it's kind of in a tough spot there to find the right mix of teams that are still interesting, but also didn't play on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, apparently it is hard. I mean, we're just looking at it right now like, oh, I guess what else can you do? But fair enough. I'm just excited for the games. It seems so far from now. But folks, like I told you at the beginning of the show, there is no off season here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Make sure that you get subscribed. Stay subscribed. It's your team every day. That's going to do it for us today, though. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, my co-host, Lauren Cox. As I tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.